Good morning, folks. And on this slightly wet day, which has been for a week, does that mean we're going to start growing flippers or something? Global warming has become that far? Anyway, less of this flim-flom. And let me introduce today our speaker. And it's Kingsley Belton. I hope I've got that name right.
You have.
And she is going to be speaking on an interesting subject. Earth,
How interesting.
Earthcare Gathering.
Yeah, get rid of them.
Kingsley.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks. And thank you for inviting me to share some of my experiences of being at the Earthcare Gathering, which was held at Swanwick at the end of October last year. And I've never done a Zoom talk, I was explaining, so I keep notes. It feels a bit different. So if you see my eyes sliding off to the side, it's just to keep me on track. So I thought before launching into summarizing my experience of going to the gathering, I would explain briefly how I got to that point, really. So like so many of us, I learned the first time, I suppose, about this thing called greenhouse gases and global warming sometime in the late 70s, early 80s. And at that time, I was working in the NHS and we were raising our family. And so I was there signing petitions. I was learning about Greenpeace. I became a member of Friends of the Earth, all that sort of thing. And I engaged with a wonderful group then called Creation-Centered Spirituality, and now more simply called Green Spirit. And they were very Quakerly. In fact, I got connected through a Quaker friend. And I found this group particularly supportive as I began my learning, and they're still going strong, actually. And all along, I'd heard about these far-off tipping points, past retirement age. It felt a long way away. And I believed that with this growing knowledge that we had, governments would take note and act to protect us. How wrong I was, really. So it wasn't until I retired from my professional role and we moved here that I heard about Extinction Rebellion, and I woke up at a personal, almost a visceral level, really, to the reality of the climate emergency that we're facing, and that successive governments were not stepping up and were complicit, really, with the fossil fuel companies and with the billionaire media barons. And I became fearful, not only for our own grandchildren, but for all of those coming after us. And I began to feel personally responsible and implicated in all of that. So around 2019, I steadily became more involved and active in the climate movement. And around 2021, with my husband, we took on leadership roles within what's become our local Nailsea Climate Emergency Group. And at the same time, I was getting to know my Quaker family in Portishead and some members of the area meeting, many of whom, as you know, are far more involved in climate actions and activism than I am. So in the spring of last year, I spotted this notice about the gathering via the very active and vibrant Quaker Support for Climate Action WhatsApp group. And at that time, we were up to our eyes preparing, planning, publicising, and frankly, panicking about a flood awareness raising event that we were holding in Nailsea in mid-June. And so the thought of this Earthcare weekend felt like a beacon of calm to spend a weekend with Quakers, all of whom understand the nature of the crisis that we face. And, I just so wanted to go. And I wanted the connection and I wanted the nourishment, really, of being amongst friends. And so I asked my local meeting if they would support my request, and area meeting generously appointed me to be their representative. So though the weekend was framed as an in-person event, Living Witness, who were leading on the initial planning, had steering group online meetings all through the summer and the early autumn, and we were all invited, those of us who had got our names down, to attend. But I had a very full calendar and multiple commitments through the summer, and I didn't attend any of those. I also felt, honestly, at that stage, I didn't want to organise another thing. And I didn't feel that I knew many of the friends who were organising, so I didn't think I had much to offer, so I didn't go to those. But nearer the time, we were sent little questionnaires and details about the flexible timetable, the names of fellow attendees, and I have to say I've never been to such a sizable Quaker gathering. So what I thought I'd do now is just give you a bit of a snapshot of my experience of the weekend. So as you would expect, it was steeped in periods of worship, and balanced with that were large group sessions, personal engagement, lots of workshops and breakout sessions offered by both the organisers and during the weekend by the participants themselves. So on Friday, it's sort of hard to know how to make this very personal experience feel relevant. So I hope at least some of them will resonate as I go along. But I had a very long, very delayed train journey. I was travelling with a mixture of excitement and anticipation, but also at this stage with a bit of trepidation, I have to say. And it was fun because as I got nearer, I started the game of spotting fellow Quakers, and soon we became a little band, and that was my first lot of connections. You can tell by the badges and the rucksacks, can't you? So as you would expect, there was a warm welcome, there was settling in, there was a hearty supper, and lots of the beginnings, really, some tentative conversations. I think I only knew one person from before as a Quaker in Northampton. So we were asked to form base groups based on what natural thing we had brought on our journey. So we were asked before this to bring something either before setting off or while we were travelling. And we placed these on what became a sort of nature table and was our reference point through the weekend in the big hall. So I met with some other leaves and we began the process of forming our base group. And that evening, the epilogue consisted of us all having a go at creating a Mobius shape from a pre-cut piece of card. And we were invited during the weekend to put on a picture or a word or a drawing to represent the different facets of our experience in a tangible form. I'd never made a Mobius before, but it's apparently used to represent infinity with no beginning and no end, and each angle facing a different direction. So it felt like it was a kind of physical representation of a journey. So the words from spoken ministry to the question, why are we here and what have we come together for? The one that particularly resonated with me and echoed what I was feeling was from a woman in the gathering. And she said, I have 4 words. I come here for clarity and courage, and I come with gratitude that we are gathered in such numbers, and hope that we can be an effective force for good. So Saturday was very full. There was a lot to take in, and I'd had very little sleep, I have to say. But we began with a short meeting for worship, and then 3 people responded to a question using the Quaker Quest format. And I found the question far too long and convoluted to hold in my head while it was being read out, but I'm going to read it to you so you understand. So it's, what has been your journey of relationship and entanglement, of seeking to answer that of God in the other, of being shown our darkness and led to new life? How has it changed you? What does it still do to challenge you? So that felt a lot to hold on to, but the 3 responses that we got were raw and deeply personal, emotional, and very moving. Each spoke about their own personal lives and vulnerabilities. And I found it extraordinary, their willingness to be so open happen with such a large group, and it kind of set the tone for the weekend. And following their 3 initial talks, we met together in our base groups and shared how we felt, and then the 3 speakers spoke again. But this was very different from my expectation, which was much more kind of climatey talks, really, I think I was expecting. And it challenged me to recognize that we all come to these gatherings with our messy lives, with our own luggage, and we don't come with particular answers, rather a willingness just to share and to be vulnerable and to listen to others. So with that in mind, we were invited to walk out into the grounds, it wasn't raining, and talk in 2s or 3s just about our own stories, how we came to be here. And I ended up with a gentleman that I hadn't met before, which isn't difficult because I didn't know anybody. But as occurred earlier in the worship, the word entanglement came up, both in its positive connotations of wanting to be enmeshed and entangled, but also in the negative connotations of getting stuck and trapped. So we spoke about how we became Quakers and what we hoped to gain. And he was a very new Quaker and newly married. And it felt good, actually, to just speak honestly and value a very different perspective. So that was good. And then after a very sociable lunch, a short rest, I attended Marcus Decker and Deborah Mitchell's group called Conscious Lawbreaking. And in this group, in pairs, we were asked what person or cause would get us to the point of being willing to break the law. So I was with a wonderful young woman called Charlotte, who is currently on bail, being one of the M25 Gangtree protesters. So we kind of already knew when she said that what she would break the law for. And her court hearing was due in August 2025 and had then at the last minute been postponed to 2027. Such is the judicial system. And she said that having felt as if her whole life was on hold, because I think the action happened in 2023, didn't it? So it's already a long wait for the court. She said now she was putting it all on the back boiler and she was just going to get on with her life and see what happens. We also talked together about the fact that I was considering taking part in the Lift the Ban action in Bristol at the end of November and the high likelihood of arrest resulting from that. We also spoke together about the legal system and its serious underfunding, and it's actually breaking under the strain, particularly of these new anti-protest laws that are enforced now. So when we fed back to the group, one woman, Ruth, who was one of the speakers at the Quaker Quest earlier, really gave a very powerful comment. She said, there's no one I wouldn't break the law for, because she said, if they're coming for one, they're coming for us all. So then Marcus told us briefly about his experience of climbing the Queen Elizabeth Bridge and with his friend Morgan and for the group Just Stop Oil, and his delight that not only did they disrupt the traffic, obviously, over Dartford Bridge and made headline news, but what was less publicised was that they shut down the oil depot next to the bridge for 30 hours, and that depot supplies Exxon and Shell. So whatever we may think about the actions taken, it was really inspiring to hear how considered and how courageous these protesters are. So then we returned for refreshments, and the second session I opted to join a singing group. And it was Marcus leading it, who's a singer and a musician and a performer. And he and another Quaker singing teacher taught us some very simple harmonies and rounds. And it felt good to kind of be in our bodies, really, having had the kind of quite intense morning. And so as that drew to a close, Marcus taught us a very simple song which he had written for the group that he formed when he was in prison. And the group is called Singing Makes It Better. And that's the title of the song as well. So we slowly walked back to the main hall singing this song. And I felt it was really enlivening, and it was nice for the group as we walked in to share the experience. And at our plenary session, the children spoke about their time. There were about half a dozen children at the meeting. They went went out in the grounds to do some noticing, not knowing, it was called. So experiencing nature without analysing, without naming, without attempting to label or understand, just to go and notice. And later, the oldest child there, called Jaya, she ministered for the first time, and it was in that huge meeting. And what she said was, there are a lot of older people here for whom the climate changing is new. But for us children, climate change is normal, and people dying is normal, and it shouldn't be normal. And I found that really painful to hear, actually. It was so, so moving. And in the evening, we had all-age worship and story time for children and adults. And there were 3 very different stories. They were great. And our base group met up to share our experiences of the day. And one member shared her rage and her anguish and another suggested that we all need to get more skilled at preparing for conflict within our own meetings, and that we need to spot red flags and even amber flags so that we can deal with issues. She said, even if it's just a hug before they erupt, we're not often very good at that. In epilogue, we heard a moving poem written by a prison cellmate of Marcus's, and he also led us in another song. So that was a lovely way to end the day. Is this sounding okay? Am I rabbiting on too fast, or is it? Okay. So we're now on to Sunday, and I managed to get up in time to go to Qigong, which was before breakfast. And here, after a few warm-up moves, we were invited to take on the poses and the spirit of tiger and monkey and bear in turn. And we also performed some lovely salutations to the 4 points of the compass. And that felt a good sort of enlivening start to the day. And then we gathered for our large morning meeting, and Laurie asked us what we felt was still needed and where we'd got to. And there were lots of contributions that came up from that question, and more participants offered more workshops and more breakout rooms. And inevitably, there were lots that I would love to have gone to, and it was really hard to choose out of the many on offer. So the next one I did attend was entitled Having Difficult Conversations. And it was a big group, lots of contributions and examples of the struggles that we often experience. A few of us stayed on, missing the break, so that we could share more deeply together. And I was rather startled, I have to say, to find that when I spoke about my wider family and my longing to engage with them about the climate emergency, I became emotional. And the support that I was given and the compassionate responses meant a lot. And I felt truly heard. And I suppose that was kind of experiencing for me the not knowing and the vulnerability of where we are at the moment. And I was advised by some fellow Quakers that I do need to challenge my family members and my friends in the teeth of the climate collapse. And one woman relayed what she says to friends who are frequent flyers. And it goes along the lines of, I feel very uncomfortable when you describe your flights because they have a direct impact on the lives of so many other people. I have to say that I haven't been brave enough or had the opportunity to confront friends in that way, but it was very helpful to hear. And a lot of people saying, we do need to not be afraid to have those conversations. So before lunch, we had our 1-hour meeting for worship with the children present for some of it. And after some post-lunch free time, I opted to go out in the grounds again. And this was with a group including Jerry Winnell, one of the organisers, and my namesake, Kingsley Belton from Norfolk. And we did a noticing, not knowing, as the children had done the day before. And so we walked together, then we separated out for 10, 15 minutes, then we came back and just shared briefly our experience and then went out again for 15 or 20 minutes. And I found that the slowing down and the noticing was absolutely wonderful. We used all our senses and gave our rational brains a break, really. And one comment that came up a couple of times was that we are inseparable from nature because we are nature. And we kind of live our lives forgetting that so often, I think. And that's what really came home to me in a felt way. It was a lovely way to walk out in those grounds and sense those things. So, of course, in between all these activities, there were social meetings, connections over meals, common ground discovered over queuing for coffee. But at 4-ish, we had a threshing meeting for an hour, and there was a great deal of spoken ministry, and there were some areas of conflict, and lots of different views were being voiced. Some felt strongly that direct action was somehow being valued more than those who hold the space for shifts in consciousness, for those who are artists, prophets, and reconcilers. Even in this gathering, even here, some felt lonely and undervalued. So there was a recognition. It had a kind of arc, that threshing meeting, so that by the end, all these roles and these different perspectives which are needed, we recognized as important, and that we are more than the sum of our parts, really, as a group. So feeding back in our base group, there was again some deep sharing of very uncomfortable feelings. And we had one member of our group, amazingly, who could draw mind maps. And she just showed us what she'd drawn. And it was clearly showing the connections and the interrelationships between all our contributions. I found it amazing. I wish I could do it. But after all that, when we had epilogue, we danced a body prayer to Bridget, Saint of Ireland, a goddess, rather, I should say, in Ireland. And that was a lovely way to close the day, because we were just all holding hands and moving together. Felt quite significant. So on Monday, we get to our early morning Zoom meeting for worship for those from the WhatsApp group who are supporting friends facing court hearings. And obviously, everybody at the gathering was invited to join us. And Rajan's hearing was due that day. So it was lovely that so many of us could join together for the 15 minutes of quiet solidarity. And he was there. And that felt a good start to the day as well. So after a very sociable breakfast, our final breakfast, we gathered for our final plenary, and we listened to the draft of the epistle. And after hearing it, there were lots of suggestions, lots of amendments, lots of additions. But I found it extraordinary that the disparate strands were woven together so skillfully by the two clerks. They managed to get a sense of the workshops, the large group sessions, the discord, the connections. And after some changes were made, the summary was endorsed, and it was as a true record, really, of what is an ongoing process. So Laurie made it clear that this was not a final finished piece. I loved the phrase in the epistle. It says, "We are all epistles from the gathering through the ministry of our lives, actions and relationships, as well as through our words." That felt, being a living epistle feels quite a challenge, and certainly not something we can do on our own, I think. And we had a final breakout session, and sadly, the one I chose was rambling and disappointingly unproductive, but never mind. So after our sort of final drinks, we all set off, and I had another very long, very delayed journey home. But this time I had some great company, because I had a young Quaker who was travelling all the way back to Cornwall. So we kept each other company. So once I was back, I was thrown immediately into my day-to-day life. And so I allowed the gathering kind of to settle in the back of my mind. And the monthly Zoom meeting that I attend for the Quaker Climate Support Group, now it feels more like a connection with friends, capital and small f. So it does have a different feel for me. I now try and join the Friday morning meeting for worship, upholding those going through the judicial system as well. And the gathering continues. So Woodbrook have got 3 sessions. I don't know if you've seen them advertised. The one is coming up next week. Then there's another one in March and a third in April. And these are designed to be open to absolutely everyone, whether you attended the gathering physically or not. So I'm looking forward to the first one, which is called Interconnection. So I would like to pose to you the questions that came up for us and that are in the epistle. So the first one is, what is mine to do and what is my capacity at the moment? Another one is, how do we witness to the power of love and truth in the face of the climate crisis? How does Quakerism need to change in these turbulent and uncertain times? How can we walk the talk? And how can we reinvigorate our Canterbury commitment? And how do we support others to progress towards more sustainable lifestyles? And then there was also a thing about needing to question our corporate structures as Quakers and understand how our money is being used. And that's come up on the WhatsApp. Sadly, although there's been a change, apparently we're still funding and investing in fossil fuel banks. And then we were asked to consider our own attitudes to our own money. And if we knew that we would lose all our assets in 6 weeks, what would we do? And what stops us from doing it now? So the epistle's final paragraph has these words: we trust that further action, meditation, and reflections will flow out of this gathering. And so I offer that to you, friends, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kingsley. That was, I could honestly say, thought-provoking. I'm sure other friends would feel that as well. Yeah, I think Quakers need to change. There's no doubt about it, because we are very much, I think, sitting on our hands at the moment, and sometimes wish it would just go away.
Yeah.
It would just go away, and no, it won't. But if there is time later, I would like to read something which a friend put together, which I thought was very prescient, but I won't, as that phrase goes, hog the site at the moment, and other friends may wish to have words or two. Patsy.
I don't know how to do that splendid hand that you've got on your screen where you put your hand up and people can see the hand. I didn't know how to do that, so I'm sorry. I just wanted to say how moving I thought it was. The young person, saying that it's been and it's been their life, from birth. They have had this really hanging around their necks. And yes, that really struck me in a way that it hasn't before. I'm not that great with young people. I tend to be rather impatient, and I'm going to do a lot of thinking about that and see how I can improve my attitude, but also what can be done positively, more than I'm doing at present. So thank you very much for that.
I'm just demonstrating for Patsy's stake how you raise the hand, and it's where it says react at the bottom. One of the options is raise hand, and you can also send hearts and things like that.
Yes.
And it leaves up lower hand, which I'm clicking, and it's gone away. But what I wanted to say, Kingsley, is that was fantastic, and all the way through your kind of recording of your experience, I just thought, this is what a lovely way to go to an event and bring it back so fully and describe it in a way that we all got it. I went to Living Witness Gathering at Woodbrook a couple of years ago, and when I came back, it was sort of like, oh, that was great, but I wasn't able to go through it so systematically or share the ideas and its effect on me in such an effective way. I've got some other stuff to say, but I just wanted to start with that because it was lovely. Thank you, Kingsley, for sharing and the way that you've shared.
Thank you.
And David, I'm really grateful for you showing me that hand, but now I've got all sorts of things come up on my screen. I don't know how to get rid of them, and I can't see people's faces anymore. It's like I've got the main instruction box, which says it's got like Google Chrome top left, and then shut down and sleep bottom right, and nowhere that I can see that I can simply click to get out and come back.
Yeah, this is the danger of holding it.
Oh, I've done it.
Well done. There you
I'm
go.
really sorry, everybody. I won't any future fiddling around. I will do in the future. Not sorry.
And there's Helen with a raised hand.
Yeah. Quick question for now, Kingsley. Those questions that you read at the end from the epistle, they're in the epistle. If I go back to the epistle, because I want to be able to see those in full.
Yes, there's too many to take in, aren't there? Yes, they are in the epistle, and the link, I think Richard put it on the report that I gave, so it'll be in the newsletter. But if you just go on the website, it'll be there. Yeah.
And if you have any documents like that report, then I could put a link to them in the meeting. And Hattie's trying to talk, but she's muted, so we can't hear her. And
you'd like that too.
Hattie, I muted you at the beginning because you were on the phone.
That's fine. I'm just saying yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah.
I think Claire's trying to talk now, but I'm not sure if that's the right.
Well, I don't. Yeah. I don't understand where these hands are. I can't find them. But anyway, this is completely going off the point of what Kingsley was saying, and it's just I can't see anything to put a hand up. But anyway, never mind. Apart from physically. I find your I'm sorry I missed the beginning. I didn't realize the time. Really interesting, and I particularly when you were saying difficult discussions, because I've more or less gone silent on saying anything about people flying, because I fly sometimes. Not that I have for about 2 years, but I mean this year we're contemplating going to visit our daughter in Hong Kong, but then I have grave reservations about it. But then if we don't see the grandchildren. It's very difficult. And when other people who are frequent flyers and are constantly going off to Europe mainly on short breaks, like 4 or 5 times a year, I just feel I'm a sort of like a Cassandra. And people don't want to talk to Cassandras. So and also I don't want to be seen a prophet of doom all the time. So I'm just not saying anything. But that's not particularly helpful, is it? So, what to do. But I thought it was very interesting, this idea that you could say, talk about the impact on other people, because I hadn't thought of that, saying that. I'm not sure if I would, but I might practice it to myself. I mean, how it would sound. But does it sound? I don't want to sound like a. Oh God, what is it? A Cassandra, a righteous person, which I'm not. Absolutely not. I don't know. Anyway. Confused.
It's so difficult. That was exactly what was being raised, in the big group and the discussion. It was very painful because, and then we talked about love miles, and I think, we've got airplanes, we can fly. It's not, it's not all terrible stuff. It has a huge impact, and I think obviously there's a lot of awareness about that, but it's more the casual, frequent flyers, the people. I've got some friends who say, now we've retired and we've got our bucket list, and why wouldn't we? We can do all this. We've got to make the most of these last few years. And I can't answer that. I tend to go silent, actually. And the other weekend we were with friends, and they've got no children and they've got plenty of money, And one of them is kind of climate aware, but his younger wife, you know, has come from a poor background and is thrilled to be able to travel, and that is their lives. And we were there as guests to them, and I know that one of them at least is aware, probably both are, but who am I to preach to them? It is so difficult. And yet I think, well, I won't respond on Instagram to their photos, and I won't congratulate them on their latest holiday and all that. But then just before I left, she said, "Oh, come and look at these photos from Gran Canaria," you know. And I mean, what at a polite level, what do you do? I find it. I tried to do a video for my family. In fact, I did a video. Which took me hours of thinking and rehearsing and admitting my own implication, because we're in this system, aren't we? But none of us, we've all got things that we could do differently and better. But I showed it to a couple of very dear friends and a couple of family members, and they all said, "Don't do it, don't send it, because the people that don't get it are just going to think you're preaching, and the people that do get it don't need to hear you." And so in the end, after all of that effort, I just put it to one side. And I think that's why I got emotional at the meeting, because I'd gone through such a process, you know. I didn't know what else to do. So it's.
But I agree. I mean, we're preaching to the converted in many cases, and the rest are not wanting to know. So it is very tricky. And also, I have travelled vastly in my life, because when back in the 60s and the 70s, and also working abroad and things, you know, who am I to say to anybody that they shouldn't want to see the world? I mean, I feel incredibly fortunate that I have seen so much of it and the wonders of it, which is part of the reason why I don't want it to be destroyed. But anyway.
Hattie, you're muted. You're waving your hand, but you're muted. So we can't hear you.
I know. But can I say something? You know, there's different ways of saying things. And as you know, how criticism is ABC. First of all, you specify what you're talking about. Then you say how you're feeling, how it makes you feel, and what you would rather. You know, that's your feelings. You don't have to tell them not to go around the world. That's their choice. Your response is, and you say why, and you say what you would rather. I also have to practice that, because I can't bear it anymore. So I say how I feel. You're not telling them not to go around the world. That's their choice. They could
Yes, but how would you say it? I don't quite understand when you say what you would rather.
Okay. When I hear about people flying long distances, I feel very sad and upset for the environment, and I would rather that holidays were taken in a different way. That's all me. That's not telling you how to behave. And if somebody says to me, "Don't tell me how to behave," I said, "I'm not. I'm telling you my response." And that's the broken record technique, is saying it again and again. I'm just telling you how I feel. And a friend told me she's never going to eat a meal with a non-vegan the other day, on Monday. And I wrote back and I said, "I'm sorry, that means that you won't take a meal with me, but I do understand. I'm not going to stop being friends with her because she's not going to have a meal with me. I'm not going to stop making friends with somebody because they're flying around the world."
No,
but
me
it is
neither,
how it
but-
makes me.
The fact that people fly and will continue to fly is an acceptance that we all have to come to in the end. But the technology is developing so that flying will become less and less polluting as it goes on. That is, I would say, dear friends, inevitable. But that increases that to that extent. But there was something I was going to read, and I've decided I will. So there you go. As friends get older, they are less likely to change, less likely to want to change. The people with the most power are usually the oldest, and they don't want to change. Some of them can't change. They are in the best position to show, to slow any or even prevent change they don't want. I feel that strongly the last time I went to yearly meeting. It was to me, it was quite powerful, that statement that I've just read. But Patsy, you wanted to say something.
Oh, just an idea, really, and it wouldn't help to people who had young children with them, I think. But I've done a good deal of travel all over the world on trains. I love trains, and without actually saying, "Why don't you get the train instead?" it still would be possible to talk about some of the exciting things that happen traveling by train, because I've had some wonderful experiences on trains, and I don't know if that would be a way of opening people's minds to different possibilities, even though I realise Gran Canaria wouldn't be an option.
I think I agree. But the other couple of years ago, my nephew decided to get married in France. Not sure why, and everybody flew except us. So it was £63 return for most of the early flights booked, and we decided to make it our holiday, so that was okay. But it was £460 for the ferry with a cabin, and then we had all the mileage of driving down to the middle of France. And I can't say that to anybody, because that just, while we have aviation fuel subsidies and such ease, of getting from A to B, and whatever the technology is, it's not happening quickly enough, and we're still part of a system that wants everything. But so I really, I love the idea of train journeys, and it makes a journey out of a holiday. It gives you so much more, but it's limited whilst the options are just stacked against anything other than flying on these distances, sadly.
I was really lucky. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't. I'll carry on. I've started. I do apologise. I was really lucky because my father worked on the railways. So until I got married, I used to get almost free travel all over the place, and it gave me. But it really altered my perspective on life completely. The fact that I had seen all these different ways of living and different people, and had to mix with many other people, not always speaking their language. And it was it did things for me that the same things being paid for by traveling by train would not have done. But anyway, I'm so sorry I came in.
Helen, you got your hand up.
Yeah. Yes, I've enjoyed traveling by train, and we went right down to Madrid, Barcelona and Madrid, and very much, as Kingsley said, made it part of the trip, allowed time for it, stayed over a night halfway, etc., etc. It was lovely. It was pricey. But yes, you learn a lot more. I just would agree with all that. One of the number of reasons that I left the Spanish conversation group I was doing with U3A was struggling with and not saying very much about the frequent flying issue, the most obvious of which was the person leading the group, who has a holiday place in Mallorca, and goes there all the time, because if you've got a place, you should use it, just as if you've got a camper van or anything else, you want to make use of it. But it's in another country. So first of all, there's the issue of the property thing, and a property being a lot of the time empty, and in this case in another country, and to make use of it, you feel you have to fly. yeah, I didn't manage. The person knew my views on climate and sustainability, but that was as far as it. We didn't have a sort of serious discussion about it. Yeah, I'd like to be brave enough to do something like you and Hattie were saying about sharing one's feelings and making it clear you're not demanding anything, you're just wanting your feelings to be heard, which is fair, because other people are making their feelings heard. I've got this lovely property in Mallorca. Isn't it wonderful? Please come and look at the pictures and, congratulate us. Sorry, I don't feel like doing that. Don't feel able to do that.
David.
Yeah, this is lovely. I was a bit involved in helping get Hamilton House in Stokes Croft opened up as a kind of community centre. And for years, there were all sorts of great conversations going on there. And I either worked out of one of the offices or the cafe there. And I went to one event that was about climate change. There's quite a lot of people there, and the facilitators there said, "Let's get a picture of what's going on. All the people who are involved in political action and lobbying, can you come up to this end? And everybody who's involved in protest and direct action, go to the other end." Brilliant. So I sort of sat there at a table watching these people divide, and I sort of put my hand up, all on my own, and this guy looked at, well, yes. I said, well, where is there a place for people who are actually doing stuff? Because at that time I was organising the solar panels on the roof of Hamilton House and preparing to organise solar panels in Lockleys on people's roofs. And and you're all so lovely. I mean, I want to go and see my grandchildren, but I can't because it's destroying the planet. And I think a lot of people and the activists are saying, you've got to know the science, you've got to understand how the planet's being destroyed and we're all going to hell, and not actually understanding the science about how we're putting things right. So there's a massive, we took the trouble last year to remedy the greatest mistakes of our generation and elect a government that might actually start to restore a social democracy. But alongside the social democracy was DEC was formed under the Blair government, although, to be fair, Margaret Thatcher set up the climate change conversations. And when I arrived in Bristol, I discovered there was this wonderful group called the Green Capital Momentum Group. And there was a European competition between cities for cities to try and figure out how to become more sustainable, not just reducing emissions, but all other aspects of sustainable city lives, making life good for our cities. And Bristol had entered the first competition and been shortlisted in the first 13, which amazed it, right? Stockholm and Hamburg had been the winners and were the first two European green capitals. And they were very quick to say, look, we aren't green. We haven't done anything like everything we need to do. But this competition is a way for us to sort of compare and benchmark. And so Bristol's council, under Alistair Sorday, great environmental activist, set up this Green Capital Momentum Group to try and get Bristol to be Green Capital, which it was in 2015, European Green Capital. And yes, we hadn't done everything we needed to do, but we were trying to figure it out. And as part of that, somebody on the council said, we've set a target to reduce our emissions by 40%. And I said, why not more? And he said, well, that's what Friends of the Earth were asking us to do. And so we've done that. And I said, well, why not 100%? And he said, it's not a requirement. And I said, well, for the council or for life on planet Earth, right? Obviously. And this was in one of those conversations that we had in Hamilton House. And it was lovely. And so we decided to set up a meeting. And we had the country's first zero carbon debate, little conference. And we had people from the World Future Council and the Centre for Alternative Technology talking about how you could get a country to be net zero. And the Centre for Alternative Technology was saying by 2030. And it was very cumbersome. You had to revert to feudal living, but there was a way to do it. And one thing that environmentalists probably don't know, we are currently on track worldwide to be net zero in our energy generation by 2030, not 2050, 2030, or a year or two afterwards. And that will include flight and travel. We will have carbon, as Ray was saying, we will have carbon neutral travel. People are working on these things, and we need to understand both sides of the argument. We can have a strong emotional position about something being good or bad, and it's wonderful to be open to accept other people's positions. But the next thing is to actually understand the science on which both sides are based, and yeah. There you
go. Yes, that flattened it a little bit, I think, but there you go. It's nice to hear from you, David, as usual. What may I ask a question then, Kingsley?
Ray?
Yes, Hattie.
I'm sorry, but both Kingsley and I, and possibly other people, are having difficulty hearing you.
Oh,
and
I'm sorry about that.
It's sound quality. So it's as if you're talking like this every now and again, that we can only hear the loud bits. It's as if only the loud bits are coming through and you're moving about. I don't know how you could make it better, but you might think, yeah.
Well, I shall lean forward, and try to enunciate a lot better than I have done in the past. Then, how about that?
Yeah, I'm not having a problem, Ray. So it's sometimes the problems are with the people who with the systems of the people who are not hearing well. So just reporting back that it's not universally bad, Ray.
Sweet of you. Kingsley, are any other conferences planned in the future which you know about, which you could tell us about?
Thanks, Ray. Really, it's the 3 follow-up Zoom meetings that Woodbrook are planning with the people that set up the Earthcare Gathering, and to say that at 7 o'clock every Wednesday and Friday, I think, Living Witness meet on Zoom, and they do one in I think it's Monday, Wednesday and Friday, different formats, and if you go onto the Living Witness website, they're there. I think the feeling as a result of going to Swanwick was that there will be another sort of Earthcare Gathering, but it will be pared right down. We weren't able to get vegan food, which is what Laurie had asked for. It was vegetarian, but they couldn't go to vegan. And it was expensive. I couldn't have gone had I not been supported by area meeting, and there was an awareness that we could do with things a bit like Christian Climate Action. They take over a travel lodge and do something in a church hall. They kind of do it at a lower level, and it allows more people to come, and there's hostels and things. So I think when it comes to doing another one, there probably will be another one, but it won't be in that sort of conference format, I think. But also the real message going out was that activists, so-called, is a funny word, isn't it? Shouldn't that we wanted it to be part of the whole body of Quakerism now, and that therefore yearly meeting and all the groups should be factoring in very much the climate and making it an integral part of our witness and following our testimonies. But I think there will be, in answer to your question, I think there will be, but in the meantime, there's going to be these 3 once a month. And I have a feeling there's some plans going on to have some groups and meetings at yearly meeting. But there's nothing set in stone about what will happen. I think it's all a bit fluid, and there's a lot of reflecting going on at the moment.
Did you mention, I think I heard right, did you mention the conference was at Swanwick?
Yes.
Blinging hard to get to on public transport. I've been to a couple of conferences and it was a pain in the proverbial to get there, because I don't drive or anything like that. So yes, I feel for you in that respect.
Well, I did allow lots of time to get there, and I'm jolly glad I did, because I think I was about 4 hours later than planned.
It's lovely when you get there. It's one of the nicest places.
Always. Just get into the blinging place. Anyway, other comments, friends?
Can I just tell you another little story about spotting, in quotes, Quakers? I went by bus down to the Holocaust Memorial Day last week, and I got on the bus and sat there, and the person just to my left, not next to me but opposite me, I said, "Oh, hello, are you also going to City Hall?" And she said, "Yes." And the person behind her said, "Yes, me too." So there was immediately a little trio of us. It was great. And I'm going to meet up with one of them soon. We just hit it off.
Rosalie.
Oh, Kingsley, thank you so much for that very full account of your weekend away. I felt like I was there. And I'm so pleased that they got a good balance of giving you time outside of your head, as well as all the opportunities for thinking, reflecting, and planning ahead. But the phrase I'll take away from today is that we are all epistles. You know, we must let our lives speak. And I think friends have just been sharing examples of that you know, we can be the light or the beacon in the darkness. So, but thank you so much for the inspiring talk.
Yes, thank you.
Right then, friends, on that moment, I would say thank you, Kingsley, for your inspiring talk. And that's, I should safely say that I think we're all better informed.
Thank you for inviting me.
Next week, friends, we will be having a talk by, David's put his, he's done that. Thank you, David. Wrong type of thing. Wrong type of thing. Next week, we will be having a talk by a friend from Redland. This is Michael Tuckwell. I'm sure some of us know. And he's going to be talking on why I am a Quaker. I think is a phrase to that. So do come and tell your friends. Tell everybody that you know. Come and listen on Friday. Thank you, friends.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Kingsley.
Thank you.
No, thank you
Very much.
Thank you
Very
very
great.
much. I'm sad I can't be here next week.
Thank you.
I'll listen to the